So today we're going to be talking about The Front Room, and to be honest, I expected to film just a generic old review about this movie. I thought I knew what to expect. And let me just say that movie is not what I expected. Firstly, I had a time trying to watch this movie, and I'm just gonna share a little mini rant. It's not even a rant, but whatever. Of my experience trying to watch this movie. I had picked out 2 showtimes. I got a babysitter and everything, picked out 2 different showtimes at 2 different theaters, and both disappeared. And so I asked them, why would you do this? Because I'm here and I would like to see this movie, please. And they said due to low ticket sales, they replaced those showings with Beetlejuice. Personally, I feel like I am the only person in the horror community that does not enjoy Beetlejuice. I mean, it's fine of a movie. It's good, but I am not a huge fan of it. So seeing the sequel in theaters, not a priority to me. Like, maybe eventually I'll watch it, but I'm just not a huge fan of Beetlejuice in general. So that made me even less of a fan. Made me less of a fan because I think the hype is just a little bit high for the Beetlejuice movie. And then movies like The Front Room are definitely getting overshadowed and even replaced by movies with Beetlejuice. So it was definitely an interesting choice to be released at the same time. Obviously, they probably didn't know necessarily that they would choose the same weekend to come out. But I do foresee this movie, The Front Room, not doing well in the box office. I know that they originally predicted that this movie would get 5 million the first weekend, and now that prediction has reduced to like 1 or 1.5 million. It's just not going to perform very well in the theater. I hope it doesn't flop, even though I'm not crazy about the movie. I still want to support horror movies in theaters, so we'll see. Everything goes to hell for newly pregnant Belinda after her mother-in-law moves in. As the diabolical guest tries to get her claws on the child, Belinda must draw the line somewhere. So this movie is written and directed by Max and Sam Eggers, who, if that name sounds familiar, are brothers to Robert Eggers, who is, of course, the director of The Witch, The Lighthouse. This movie is based on a short story by Susan Hill that was published in a collection of 4 stories in 2016, and I was trying to buy the book on anything, really. I wanted an ebook because I didn't have time for shipping, because I wanted to read the short story before I filmed the review, but I couldn't find it anywhere in the US. I think it's not here, like it's not on Apple Books, it's not at my library, on Libby. I couldn't find it anywhere to purchase an ebook of it. Anyway, so I didn't read the short story, but I am so curious. I'm going to buy the collection because Susan Hill wrote The Woman in Black, and I really love that book, and I love short fiction. Like, that's one of my favorite things to read. So the fact that Susan Hill wrote a collection of stories, I definitely want that book. Like, it sounds like something I would be interested in anyway, but I'm also severely curious about how this compares to the story and what actually happened within the story, because this movie, man, I'm gonna be real with you, I didn't like this movie. And it wasn't even because it was technically bad. It's not a bad movie. It's not terrible. I did not enjoy my experience of watching this movie, which is mostly what I'm going to focus on, because this experience was so uncomfortable, so anxiety-inducing that I did not have fun. Like, it's not a fun movie to watch. Any other movie has that kind of element of fun or entertainment. Even the bad ones, we love to hate on movies too. This one was just so uncomfortable and so disgusting that I did not enjoy any part of watching this, and I wanted to leave that theater so badly, and I was just not having a good time. I don't think I've ever reviewed a movie like that. I don't think I've ever said I didn't like a movie because of the experience watching it was so uncomfortable and not fun. Like, I don't think I've ever really said that about a movie, except for maybe Mother, which this movie reminds me a lot of Mother. I think Mother, that one was definitely a hard watch in theaters, and it was way more extreme. This movie does not go to those extremes by any means, so, don't expect that. But it was the same level of anxiety-inducing kind of feeling where I was like, this is literally a nightmare. This is a nightmare to me. And to be honest, I don't think it was a great movie either. I said it's not terrible, but it's not great. by any means. I personally still didn't like many of the technical aspects of like the performances and the storytelling and things, so I have some criticisms there. I will also be doing some spoilers at the end because some of this is just too weird to not talk about, so I will be throwing some spoilers in at the end. Now, this does star Brandy, which I was actually really excited about, but personally I did feel like her performance was a little bit flat. I felt like in general it was all a little bit flat. Now, the portrayal of Solange, it was definitely something. I don't know what it was about this woman, but it was just so uncomfortable. Now, of course, the actress plays Mrs. Fig in Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix, and I was like, where do I know her from? And then it clicked. The performance of the husband was pretty generic and lackluster. Reminded me a little bit of Imaginary, where he's kind of absent, which in this world does not make any sense at all because it's his mother-in-law, well, not his mother-in-law, it's his stepmother, so it's Belinda's mother-in-law, so the fact that he's just like out of the house all the time is like not fair, first of all, but also he's just like working all the time, and this is a time period of having a baby. It's just, did he not take any paternity leave? I don't understand. And that leads me to my first criticism of this movie on a technical level, is the unbelievability of a lot of the things happening in this movie. I just don't, maybe it's just me, but there is no way I would be caught in this situation ever. And so maybe I'm just a bad person, but I would not take in my mother-in-law when I'm about to give birth, when she is also needing care, you know? And that seems to be my issue with a lot of movies coming out these days, are the unbelievable details and storylines in these movies and characters. Just, I don't believe the dialogue. I don't believe their decisions. The decisions in this movie are insane to me. I'm sorry. And it took me out of it because it just wasn't believable. As someone who has had a baby and gone through postpartum and done all of that stuff, okay, there is just no way. There's just no way. Again, maybe it's just me and my experience, but I wouldn't be in this situation. First up, they have the nursery downstairs from their bedrooms. So their bedrooms are all upstairs, and they decide to put the nursery in the front room, right? The movie's called Front Room. That's where the nursery is, and of course the mother-in-law is like, that's my room. I want that room. I get why they put the nursery there in the first place, and they do acknowledge it by saying like, oh, isn't it dangerous to have the baby downstairs when we're upstairs? But it's like, you would want the baby so goddamn close to you if they were in this situation. I'm sorry. You would not want the nursery downstairs, okay? I had to have my baby like within inches. I didn't even roll over in the bed because I thought if I was facing away from my baby, well, I had postpartum anxiety, so I'm not even gonna say that. But I thought bad things would happen if I was not staring at my baby 24/7. So that's just me. Again, that was my experience, but there's no way my baby would be in another room, let alone downstairs, okay? Again, they acknowledge it. There's a reason, but it still would not make sense. I think it makes even less sense because of the reason. I think you would want the baby that much closer to you. I don't know. Now, Belinda, she's a bigger person than me, okay? And so much so that I didn't believe it because she was just way too nice. She was way too nice. No amount of money in the world would convince me to do that, okay? To like have a baby and also be a caregiver at the same exact time while you're healing from a baby. The name of the baby, of course, Solange has something to say about that, which there was a lot of weird synchronicities with my own baby in this movie, which is very strange. They chose the name Fern. That's my daughter's name. So I was like, yay, go Fern. And then Solange was like, no, what, you got a plant growing in there? It's like, oh. I just think they're way too passive. Now, the husband, of course, understandable. One, he's absent, so I don't really know who he is or what is going on there, but he also has some trauma with his stepmom, so he's going to be passive with her because she was like an authoritative figure in his childhood. But Belinda, why are you don't have to be that nice. And she's just met this woman. So I don't know if it's like something supernatural going on where the woman is, because obviously she's very religious, and so I don't know if it's like she says like the Holy Spirit possesses her and like speaks through her. So maybe that's some manipulation of Belinda and it's something supernatural going on, but they didn't really make that clear if that was what was happening. I don't think this is a spoiler by any means, but they would have had a caregiver when she was postpartum. I don't think there is any possibility that she is like trying to breastfeed and she's healing from a cesarean, okay? They don't have a caregiver and this woman is incontinent and just peeing and pooping. There's no way. And that's where we get to my main criticism and my main thought walking away from that movie was there is too much poop. There's too much poop in this movie, and God, I wish it was baby poop. That was disgusting. It was foul. I felt sick. Why was there so much feces in this movie? I don't understand why they chose to do that. I have to assume that they were going for discomfort for the viewer, because this is not just any old movie that you can just, you know, casually watch. Don't eat. I'm usually not someone who feels nauseous watching stuff like that while eating. This one definitely got to me. It was disgusting. I wasn't a fan. Again, that's one of the reasons why I was so uncomfortable throughout a lot of this movie. It's like, why is there so much shit? I can't. Bodily fluids in general, actually, we're gonna say that. It was gross. It was a gross movie. So like I said, that this is a horror movie in the same way that Mother is a horror movie, if you've seen that. It's not so in your face. It's definitely more psychological. Jesus Christ. And I mean that literally. Definitely more psychological than scares, you know. I think there's like one jump scare in this movie. It's not even bad. I don't even know if they intended it to be a jump scare. So it's not your traditional kind of horror movie. It is a very strange, anxiety-ridden horror movie. Also, the situation just being really shitty and you're just trapped, again, literal shit. Just being trapped in your own home, being trapped in this shitty situation, you know, like that kind of horror. And it worked for me. Like that horror, it was horror. This is one of the most horrifying movies I think I've ever seen, because if I was that woman, there is no way I would ever be in that situation. But if I were, nightmare. Like, to me, it's up there with Mother, okay, as far as like anxiety that I would feel if I was in that situation. Obviously, it doesn't push it to that extreme necessarily, so don't expect severely disturbing by any means. It was just weird. It was a weird horror movie. I don't know how to describe it. It was all psychological, pretty slow and boring, and a lot of the horror unfortunately came from her being a scary old woman, and that's a trope I'm over. Like, it doesn't work for me. I don't like it. She did make me feel very uncomfortable, but it just shouldn't necessarily be that way. I feel like they were relying too much on her weird performance and her just being a weird woman than actually doing anything horrific. Another cliche they do that I'm over, I can't even say they're horror dream sequences. They're like horror hallucinations. So they put a lot of weird, bizarre imagery in these hallucinations / dreams. Again, something supernatural is going on here. I don't really know. But I don't love when that is kind of all the horror that we're getting, because the only other horror in the movie besides the hallucinations and dream stuff is the uncomfortable situation that she's in and like the tension there. And personally, I expected something a little bit different, and maybe that's on me for having certain expectations, but I just feel like the story wasn't fully fleshed out entirely. I don't know, it was just weird choices along the way, I would say, with the characters and also the storytelling. It just didn't work for me, the way the story kind of played out. So now we're gonna get into a couple nitpicky things with spoilers. So yeah, I give it 2 out of 5. 2 out of 5. It was weird. I gave it 1 star because it was effective. I have to have respect for the fact that it made me severely uncomfortable, and it's rare that a movie gets that kind of reaction out of me. I rarely watch movies that do that, so I gave it a star for that. On a technical level, it wasn't fantastic, but you tell me, what did you think about this movie? Yeah, just leave a comment about it. We're gonna get into spoilers now. First up, C-sections, not vertical. I don't understand why her scar was going up her belly, because even in an emergency situation, they would still cut you open, you know, low on your belly. That's just where, I've never had a C-section, but I'm pretty sure regardless, they would not just cut through the top of the stomach. I don't know why they wouldn't have been able to go through the lower belly. So that was strange that she just had like a scar going across her belly. I think it's because there was like this weird scene where okay, first of all, she gets home from the hospital with her baby. She's holding her brand new newborn, walks in the door. Her mother-in-law has invited people over from her church. Absolutely not. I would immediately go upstairs. Like, I would not entertain them for 1 second. She just had a C-section. She can barely walk, and she's holding her newborn, and they immediately take the newborn out of her arms. And then they put their hands on her belly and start speaking in tongues, and somehow that heals her C-section scar that's running vertically over her stomach. Again, in no hospital, I feel like, would do that. You let me know if you've ever experienced a C-section vertical across from the top of your belly down. I don't know in what situation they would do that. But that scene is specifically the reason why I'm kind of comparing it to Mother. Because if I had to come home to a house full of people that I did not know with my newborn after just giving birth, no, that's a nightmare. Belinda wore shitty clothes for way too long. I just could not help but stare at the shit on her clothes. I'm sorry I'm swearing so much in this video. I feel like I never do. But I can't. The poop on her clothes was on... She wore those clothes way too long. It was like hours she wore poopy clothes because her mother-in-law pooped somewhere in the house and dragged it along the entire hallway, all over pictures, all of it. And she had to spend so much time cleaning poop off the walls and floor. And her mother-in-law, she got covered in poop somehow all over here. And she wore those clothes. She continued to wear them. And also the husband, when he picked up his stepmom, when she, she was incontinent in the bed, he wore his work suit. He was fully dressed, ready to leave. He's a lawyer. He was fully dressed, and he picks her up to put her in the bath upstairs, carries her upstairs, and then he continues to go to work in those clothes. Do these people just not mind shit on their clothes? He said for 1 second, he's like, I have pee on my tie, and he had to replace his tie. I'm like, I'm pretty sure you also have poop on you, because she was very, very incontinent in the bed. So anyway, that's many, many scenes of just poop. So I can't. There's also, she like coughs up a lot of stuff. Like I said, bodily fluids, just... So if you have emetophobia, she doesn't necessarily like vomit, but like it's just not fun. It's not fun. The breastfeeding scene, I can't, y'all. It pulled an infinity pool. Yes, it did. This woman, at one point, there was one hallucination where she had like 8 breasts, and they were all milk. She was breastfeeding the baby. And then it gets worse, actually. She breastfeeds her stepson. As an adult man. Again, these are hallucinations. They weren't real. They were not real. These were within dream hallucinations that Belinda is seeing. And that could be because of the supernatural elements or postpartum. Who knows? But she saw her husband breastfeeding from this woman. Okay, so that's the most disturbing this movie gets. I honestly thought her plan in the end was kind of silly, and that scene was really silly where she like set up all of the pictures and the chair, the dad's ashes on the chair. She set this all up and she was gonna run it over with her car. I don't really understand that, because like, what was the end plan there? And also the dad's ashes, he didn't do anything, right? I mean, I don't know, we don't know that much about him, but he was a member of the church as well. But I'm pretty sure your husband would want those ashes because it's his dad. I know they weren't like that close from what I could understand from the relationship, but you're just gonna run over the dad's ashes? Like, what did he do? And then we get the reveal in the end. And I actually appreciated that, because that was the only part that was believable. I would fully believe that is what would happen in this story. I can't say that I would have done the same, right? So the whole point of them even caring for the mother-in-law is because she is leaving all of her money to them in her will. So as long as they take her in and care for her, they will be in the will. And they're kind of struggling financially, which is funny because he's a lawyer and they have this nice house. So I'm like, where's the struggle? And again, it really bugs me he took no paternity leave. Like, you could do that paid. You get paid, not necessarily the full payment you would normally get, but you get paid for paternity leave. So I don't know what, I mean, it was filmed in New Jersey. I'm pretty sure New Jersey has paternity leave. Anyway, that just frustrated me for her sake, because there's no way that she would do that by herself. Anyway, the reveal is that Belinda actually kills the mother-in-law. I appreciated that ending because, I mean, it's kind of predictable because it was such a bad situation. So it's like, why wouldn't you, right? Because she was an awful woman. And then it's funny with the song that she's singing in the car, you know, with no regrets. Like, I see what they were doing and what they were going for with the story. I just wasn't a huge fan myself of the whole movie because I was, like I said, just too uncomfortable throughout all of it. It was just too much. Let me know if you have seen The Front Room and if you were as shocked as I was to see that movie, because that's not what I expected from this movie at all. But yeah, let me know your thoughts down below. I hope you enjoyed this video and I'll talk to you very soon. Bye.